as long as you're getting that sleep and you're consistent about that schedule, it's probably, I would say it's not a problem until it is. I do think that there is something powerful about going to bed a little earlier.
Step into a world where dreams and productivity intertwine as Huberman unveils his meticulously crafted sleep hacks, capable of transforming restless nights into rejuvenating sanctuaries of revitalization, catapulting you towards peak performance like never before.
The other thing is that many of the people waking up after 4 or 5 hours were supposed to go to bed earlier. Remember, melatonin puts you to sleep but doesn't keep you asleep. So many of these people might be going to bed at 11 o'clock, waking up at 3 or 4 a.m., going, oh, here I am again, when actually they need to go to bed at 9. Now, there's this weird asymmetry in the way that our system is built, in that we can push through fatigue, but it's very hard to make ourselves fall asleep.
Embrace the awe-inspiring power of sleep as Huberman bestows upon you his most coveted sleep hacks, a pantheon of scientifically backed techniques that will transport you into a realm of profound rest, where body, mind, and soul converge in perfect harmony.
When you're younger, shift work has less of a detrimental impact than it does when you're older. And this is because of some changes in the way that the pineal churns out melatonin, but also some other things that change as we age, like the lymphatic clearance which is like a washout system of the brain, but that occurs during sleep.
Witness the birth of a sleep revolution as Huberman delves into the depths of nocturnal restoration, revealing the hidden mechanisms that govern the quality of your slumber, and arming you with a treasure trove of sleep hacks that will forever redefine your performance potential.
I think thanks to the incredibly hard work of Dr. Matt Walker at Berkeley, right? The sleep diplomat on Twitter, right? It's such a great name because it's so appropriate. I mean, a decade ago or so, it was like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. That was the dominant mentality out there. And yeah, sleep's great, but getting stuff done is more important.
Surrender to the enchantment of Huberman's sleep alchemy, where he distills the wisdom of ages into a potent elixir of sleep hacks, illuminating the path to unparalleled vitality, mental acuity, and the boundless reservoirs of creative genius that lie dormant within.
And the true definition of insomnia is not that you can't sleep, it's that you're falling asleep during the day or during the time when you would like to be alert because you're exhausted. And so at the sleep clinic at Stanford, they define insomnia by a number of metrics, but that's the primary one.
Stand on the precipice of transformation as Huberman unveils his sleep hacks, challenging the very foundations of your understanding of rest, inviting you to embark on a mystical journey that will shatter the barriers of fatigue and unveil the untapped reservoirs of your untamed potential.
I think we could probably nail this with a couple key findings. So first of all, if you are going to be on any sleep schedule, ideally you maintain that schedule for at least 2 weeks. So the worst thing possibly in the world is the swing shift schedule, where you're sleeping from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. like a typical person for 3 days, and then you're switching to sleeping all day and up all night, and then back again, switching back and forth.
Prepare to be spellbound as Huberman unravels the intricacies of sleep optimization, a symphony of techniques meticulously crafted to orchestrate a nocturnal ballet of rejuvenation, awakening you to a new dawn of unparalleled performance and profound well-being.
That's kind of the top contour of it. But when one looks at the neuroscience, for instance, of sleep, you start to realize that, the amount of rapid eye movement sleep that you're going to get in any 90-minute bout of sleep, as your sleep is broken up into these 90-minute segments, more or less, is strongly dictated by the ratio of slow wave sleep, aka deep sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep that you had in the previous 90-minute bout. And then when you start to look at the research in terms of waking states, you start to find that your ability to be focused, say for a bout of work in the morning or the afternoon, or a creative brainstorm session, or to maybe drill into some personal issue that you're dealing with during therapy or just on a walk or while journaling, is not a square wave function. None of us should sit down and expect ourselves to just drop into that state. Much of our ability to move into that state effectively, whatever effective means, right, whatever the target or goal of that bout, as I'm calling it, is going to be dictated by what happened in the previous moments and hours. And so when I zoom out from that, what I've doubled down on is this idea that there are just a core set of foundational things that we have to re-up every 24 hours.
So some people need to discover that they actually were meant to go to bed earlier. I know people think about night owls and morning larks and this kind of thing. That's a big idea in industry. And to some extent it's true. There are genetic polymorphisms that relate to these things. But for the most part, most people were, evolved under conditions where they went to sleep shortly after the sun went down. So with age, I'm going to bed earlier and earlier. I realize there's some lifestyle factors too, but I do think that there is something powerful about going to bed a little earlier. I keep asking Matt Walker if there's any science to support this, and he tells me no, but I find, and many people find, that every hour of sleep before midnight recharges them more deeply than the hours after midnight. And I don't know what this is, but I find if I go to bed at 9 o'clock and I'll sometimes wake up at midnight, I'm like, it's only midnight. What am I going to do? But then I fall back asleep. I'll wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. and I'm ready to go. And that's great. I mean, you can get so much done in the hours between 4 and 7 a.m. Fewer distractions. Your focus can be very high. The problem is most people are going to bed late. They're waking up at 4 or 5 hours later. Then they're scrolling on their phone because it's a very kind of passive sensory input. They're trying to get themselves back to sleep. It doesn't work. And then throughout the day, they're working at about 75% capacity. So I would encourage those people to just start going to bed earlier. So I think the best way that we could probably frame this for your audience would be, typical schedule would be going to sleep somewhere between 9:30 and 11:30 and waking up somewhere between 5:30 and 8 a.m. right? Mm-hmm. That's sort of typical schedule. And then the inverted schedule, or the let's call it the atypical schedule, would be going to bed very late, waking up in the mid-morning or early afternoon, and then and so on. Swing shift is when people are switching between the typical and the atypical schedule. Yeah. More often than every 2 weeks. And that causes not just disruption of the gut clock and liver clock and the circadian mechanisms that lead to indigestion and heart issues. It actually leads to such chronic increases in cortisol and such altered patterns of dopamine that in the brain that you can get mild psychosis in people that would otherwise be perfectly fine. You can exacerbate psychosis and depression in people that have a predisposition for them. You can see learning deficits. It's just really bad to do that swing shift. But I think people who are waking up after 4 or 5, sorry, I should close that out and say that, but an appropriate amount of physical exercise each day is going to help you get the appropriate amount of sleep. And the rule of thumb from the literature is about 150 to 180 minutes per week of zone 2 cardio. So this is cardiovascular exercise of any kind where you could have a conversation, but you're a little bit strained. You'd prefer to be quiet to keep it going. But as long as you're getting that sleep and you're consistent about that schedule, it's probably, I would say it's not a problem until it is, right? So for you, I mean, you're still training, you'd still get your blood work done. You still maintain a healthy social life. You are involved. You do the supercar thing. Like you've got things going on as far as I can tell, and you're very successful. So, I mean, I had a schedule that wasn't quite that extreme, but was similar to that for many years. Lex Friedman follows a schedule of staying up late often and sleeping in late and waking up. Sometimes he'll switch, but and sort of depends. So I think there's a time for it when it's fine. I think that in the long term, it's best to get to a more regular schedule, but some people are indeed night owls and prefer to go to bed late and wake up late. Some people do really well getting up early and going to bed at like 8:39, which sounds dreadful to me. It just sounds like the worst schedule because I like mornings and evenings. The one thing that is really valuable is that if people are feeling tired when they would like to be awake, then they need to change their sleep schedule. The other thing is that many of the people waking up after 4 or 5 hours were supposed to go to bed earlier. Remember, melatonin puts you to sleep but doesn't keep you asleep. So many of these people might be going to bed at 11 o'clock, waking up at 3 or 4 a.m., going, here I am again, when actually they need to go to bed at 9. Now, there's this weird asymmetry in the way that our system is built, in that we can push through fatigue, but it's very hard to make ourselves fall asleep.